to walk away. And when I walked away, he went into negotiating and we got it for the price that we wanted or he wanted that was well worth it, And so I often think about, that story because that's something that I know that I needed to work on. Now, since then, I'm way better at negotiating in my personal business and some things I do personally. And of course, when I'm with him, I always let the master negotiate. And so I will always walk away or let's say now I can actually stand with him and I can have whatever face that negotiation face on, like, no, we're going to negotiate this and either we're going to come to an agreement or I'm totally walking away from this. And as a matter of fact, just a few weeks ago when we were in Dubai, that's exactly what happened. They did not come down on the price. That was a great price. And so we decided, no, we're walking away. And when we walked away, we walked out of the store. And finally, they ran out the store. They're running after us. And they said, okay, we can give it to you for that price. Here's the thought with that. Before we left the store, you knew you could have given it to us at that price. And so we basically said, no, we're not interested anymore. Before we walked out, you should have given us that price. And since we walked away, we don't need that price. We'll just go take our business somewhere else. And that's exactly what we did. See, when you're thinking about negotiation, you get to decide what is the price that you really want to pay? What is it? How much is it worth for you? Right. And that's the same thing when we're even negotiating in our personal lives, right? What is it really worth, for you? And so are you willing to negotiate in your relationships to get exactly what you want or what both of you want, where both of you can benefit in the negotiation? In business, you look at it where both of you will benefit and everybody gets to choose on each end of the negotiation, whether it's personal or business, what you're going to choose to do, right? Or what is that value of it? So I'm super excited to talk about this subject today. I think it's really going to be valuable for you. Especially as women, y'all, sometimes negotiation is just not our, what's the word I want to use? It's just not something that we do well. And so I think this is so important. We often talk about negotiation. I often will invite my husband to come and talk about it when I'm doing business coaching or when I'm doing my events. And if it's a business event or any type of event where we've got leaders and professionals who want, especially women who want to work on negotiation. This is some of the conversations that we have. What I want to do today, however, is not just talk about the business aspect of it, but I also want to talk about the relationship aspect of it because it's so important to our overall life, And so let's dive in. Let's get started. Let me introduce my very special guest. Let's give a warm welcome to Jon Graham. He is the founder and pastor of Reset Church in Milford, Delaware, and he's a decorated veteran with over 20 years of service in the U.S. Air Force. With a diverse background and wealth of experience, Jon brings a unique perspective to the table as we dive into the art of negotiation. He demonstrates a keen ability, let's say, to navigate complex situations. Y'all, he's married to me, and achieve positive outcomes throughout his career. That's one of the complex situations. Today, he'll share his insights and negotiation and offer valuable strategies for achieving success in business and life. Let's begin. Let's welcome Jon Graham, y'all. Come on. Heart it up for him.
Hey, everybody.
Hey. How are you?
Hey. How's everybody?
Well, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. So I'm super excited to have you here. And so you guys, so you would know, we did not discuss this prior to coming on. We did not discuss what we were going to talk about because I just really wanted to be very organic. And as I said before, Jon he's my spouse. We've been married for 36 years. So you guys know he's got some serious negotiation skills when it comes to that part, to the life negotiations with relationships when you're with your spouse or your significant other, and just other relationships. And of course, in business. And what I didn't mention, he's an excellent realtor, right? Not only is he a pastor, but he's a business person. He works a lot with veterans in negotiating their benefits. And so he's just, I just admire just his demeanor of how he negotiates, and not just because he's my husband, but it's because that's just what it is. He's just really good at what he does. And so, Jon, let's just get started. And so, the first thing I want to ask you is, how has your Air Force experience influenced your negotiation approach?
Wow. Interesting question. Let me think for a second. I guess the first piece of that would be when I went down to the MEP station, or to the recruiter, and talked to the recruiter about what I wanted to do, yada yada yada. So at that point, negotiating started. How much time I was going to spend in basic training, what sort of entrance program I was going to go on, what career field I was going to go into, how much was I going to make, do I get a bonus? So I asked all these questions. So anytime that there's a transaction, or anytime that there's something that you want and there's something that I want, there's always a field for negotiation. So the Air Force wanted me. I wanted, not necessarily the Air Force, but I wanted a stable, life. Not that I didn't have one at home, but I was just starting my adulthood, and that was really the first major contract that I negotiated, and it locked me in for 20 years.
So what I hear you saying with that is that just from the beginning, the negotiation, it took you and the Air Force, whoever was the recruiter, and you
Mhm.
both had to come to an agreement. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So in coming to that agreement, when you're thinking about that, is it where, I know, like, there's only, people make up their mind. There's just so far I would go.
Mhm. Right.
In negotiating that, did you feel like if they had the advantage? Because, sometimes when you're negotiating, I know for me, sometimes I get intimidated because I think, well, they have the advantage.
Mhm. Right.
Did you think that at all? I mean, you were young
Yeah, I was
when
young.
you,
My thought was, this is the federal government.
yeah,
They've got everything pretty much lined up. Let me read through
yeah,
the contract and what they say they're going to do for me, and see
right.
if that fits what I really want. Because if it doesn't fit what I really, if it's not a win-win situation, then at least at that point, if it's not a win for me, I wasn't really concerned about the Air Force, because I said, well, they could probably get another person, if
Yeah,
I don't want to do this, but it had to be a win for me. So that's the first thing. What do I want out of it? And
yeah,
and when I decided what I wanted out of it, I wanted the independence. I wanted the information, to build a career and all of those things. I wanted all of those things. So as I went through the contract, it says, okay, you give us your time, you give us this, you give that. We're going to give you experience. We're going to teach you, things that you would never learn in, or very unlikely learn in the civilian sector. You were going to do all those things for you, and that's what I wanted. So I just started negotiating. Not that you could negotiate much price, but there were signing bonuses, so you could,
right, right, right.
yeah, you could
So
negotiate
basically, you
that.
look for what you can negotiate. You might not be able to negotiate the dollar number, the dollar amount, but
Mhm.
there may be other things that you can
Addition,
negotiate
yes,
that you value and that you can benefit from.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah, good.
yeah.
That's
So,
good. Good
so
stuff.
that's where it really started. That was the first major contract that I believe that I negotiated.
Yeah, good. Good. And so, did you get everything you wanted? I
I
guess so. You did. It became a career.
Yeah, it became a career. I did 20 years, and I was very happy at the time. Hindsight 2020, I would have told them to pay me twice as much, if not three times. But I was very, very happy with the outcome at the time. It was just me. Didn't have any children. Didn't have a lovely, beautiful wife, and all I had to do was make sure that they, put a roof over my head, fed me,
Yeah.
and taught me.
Yeah, you're looking at your career and just starting out. Yeah. So tell me, what are some of the common misconceptions about negotiation since then, since your first negotiation contract that you
Mhm.
did with the Air Force, you've done several thousands and thousands, of course, since then, not just within the military, but outside as a pastor, a business person, a man with a wife and a whole family. There's several things, but let's talk about some of the misconceptions about negotiations that we may have, and how did you address those misconceptions? What are they, and how did you address them?
Okay, let me address the man with the wife thing. The first thing is you don't always get what you want. No, no, some of the um, wow, that's the misconceptions are this, that everybody's number one is that whoever you're negotiating with, whoever's on the other side of that communication negotiation, is absolutely trying to get over on you, right? And with
Oh,
that
wow.
mindset,
That's a misconception.
it's a misconception because they're not
Okay.
necessarily, um, two people with integrity, um, attempting to enter into a contract aren't trying to get over on each other. But
Right, right.
that's not always the case. You can have someone that does not have the scruples or integrity, and they're going to basically try to railroad you. So the best thing, so the misconception is number one that everybody's like that, and in fact, it's only like 5% of the people.
And for those people who are trying to railroad you, or you see that, should you even go into negotiation with them?
If they have a reputation for that, that would be definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
That you don't necessarily want to do business with them. But everyone who says they've been railroaded haven't necessarily been railroaded.
Got you. Got you. Yeah.
So you basically consider the source. Validation is very, very important when it comes to business relationships and personal relationships, because who someone is to the person that you're talking to may not be the same to you. So
Right, right.
or the person that you're talking to may not have been the same in that transaction, and therefore the outcome wasn't what they really desired it to be. So they're going to down talk it.
So, like, how would you address any misconceptions then? Like,
So the first thing is to know in any negotiation, if you don't know what you want, then your negotiation is not going to be effective. So the
yeah,
first thing is you have to know what you want. The second part of that is know how much you're willing to give or to back off. And yeah, and basically know the cutoff. If it
yeah,
goes below this, or if it comes to this point, then that cancels everything out. I'm not going to do it.
right,
And that's where the negotiation comes place. What they want here, well, it's more this way. What
right,
you
right,
want versus what the person that you're negotiating with wants, and you want to meet somewhere in the middle. But consider this: the middle can be, um, between the two. The middle could be here, or it could actually be here. This is where we meet. This is where
right,
fair
right,
for both of us,
right.
and
Yeah,
that's one of the things. And the other piece is you don't have to always get over. You're looking for negotiating. You're looking for a fair to better deal.
yeah. I like that, a fair to better deal, because often I think of, I know for me that, discovering this is what I want.
Mhm.
And then I have my non-negotiables. Like, these are the things I can negotiate with what I want. But then on this other side, these are the things that I will not negotiate. And so with my non-negotiables, if you don't at least meet my non-negotiables, then I know we can't get to the pieces that are negotiable because we
Right.
haven't even met the non. And
Mhm.
so for me, that's how I kind of draw. This is what's non-negotiable for me.
Mhm.
And this is what I can negotiate. And so if you could at least meet that, then we can negotiate the rest of it. I mean, I think that's a good plan. I think I learned a lot of that from you. But is that a good plan to make a determination like what you want and what is negotiable and what is a non-negotiable?
Mhm. Yes, yeah. So that's hitting the nail right on the head, and driving it through the wood.
Yeah.
It's my, as you said, your non-negotiables, and your non-negotiables are when you make the determination that I'm not walking out of unless I get this, right?
Yeah.
Unless I get to this point, that's my non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
It's not a deal. So if it doesn't get to the point to where I'm comfortable, I'm walking away, right? And
Yeah.
you really have to listen to yourself, because you can be somewhat uncomfortable, but can be convinced to move forward anyway. And in some of those cases, you should have absolutely listened to your conscience, and walked away when you needed to walk away.
Yeah.
Um, because then you end up with something. You end up, and you may have even a good product or a good service, but you're dissatisfied with the transaction itself initially.
Mhm.
So you're going to be
Mhm.
dissatisfied with the service or the product because of the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So, is there a time limit to negotiation? Like, if we're negotiating 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Is there a time limit or is it based on, what you want or what the product is or what you are actually negotiating? Because I know some negotiations, I guess it's based on that, could take weeks,
Right.
depending on what it is, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. Going back and forth. So a fair price is what a buyer is willing to buy whatever it is for, and what the seller is willing to sell it for. And that's a fair price. So
Mm,
so
okay.
so when you're negotiating, it's really, really important to have information as power when you're negotiating, especially if it concerns the product, or um, or the person that you're
Right,
negotiating.
right,
And
right,
if
right.
you know what someone's buttons are, or if they're in a financial situation, you never want to destroy someone financially. But if you know someone's in a final financial situation, and they're trying to put the squeeze on you, basically make you take the brunt of what they're dealing with. And as long as you know that, and you can, you've seen it on Hallmark, you've seen it everywhere else, to say, hey, we actually know what's going on in your business, and
Yeah,
you need this more than I do. So let's talk about where we're going to come between where you are and where
yeah.
I.
Leverage,
Yeah.
right? You're leveraging. Yeah. So, share with us just a little bit, or give us some practical tips on effectively negotiating in business and personal relationships. I know you've covered a little bit especially with the business, but what are some tips you could give us on effectively negotiating in both personal and business?
Okay. So one of the things is know your um, do your homework first, right? Information, leverage, do your homework as much as you can. Even if you're going in for an interview, for a job
Yeah.
interview, it pays to do research on the company that you're going to interview, and have questions for them, to let them know that, hey, you're not just plopping yourself in the seat. You've done research, and if they want people that are proactive, then that's going to be a plus, for you as well. So do your homework, do your research, so that you'll know the questions to ask. And when things that are spoken or said that don't necessarily agree with what you already know about, the company or what you've read, you can address those and ask those questions. Then they're put on in the position as to where they have to explain, and they feel like they're at a disadvantage because you know more about the business than they know about you.
And what about the personal relationship? What are
So
some practical tips for that?
So practical tips for that is, just be in personal relationships, just be observant, and again, know what you want. So if you don't know what you want out of a relationship, you're going
Yeah,
to settle for just about anything. But know
right.
what you want. Have, as you said, Esther, your non-negotiables. Right? Raise your hand at me. You better not call me out of my name, this, that, and everything else. Or
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
prefer not to do that. Have those are things that should be non-negotiable, right?
yeah. And
Don't
conversations when you're thinking about relationships, the give and take and what you value,
right,
right?
right, right. And also
Yeah,
remember that the person on the other side may not necessarily be trying to get over because they're doing certain things, they're acting a certain way. They may not necessarily be trying to get over. They may not just be able to communicate what it is that they really want. So if
yeah,
you want peace in that relationship, then and you have the ability to communicate, then use that to your advantage to go into a conversation and say, hey, this is, I noticed that this is going on, and
yeah,
I really love you. I don't want things to get any worse. Can we talk about where we are? This, that sort of thing. So it's, but knowing what you want first, and
yeah,
then being willing to discuss what they want, and then meeting each other somewhere in the middle.
yeah. And I think with the negotiation as well, you have to know the capacity of the person. Like, do they have the capacity for this?
Right.
Does it make sense? Like, maybe you're at a certain place and they're just not, you
Mhm.
know?
Right.
And so beginning to look at that to see how you could really bring that together. And I honestly think that negotiation looks different depending on the relationship that you're in. Like,
Yeah.
I think that if you're married and you have a spouse, the negotiation looks different than if you're not married, or the negotiation looks different. Like, there's some foundational things, of course, but negotiation also looks different if it's your friend,
Mhm.
right? Or if it's
Your
just an
child.
acquaintance or your child. And here with all of it though, it all requires a foundation of what is it that you want? What are the things that you value in the relationship and even in the business? What is it? And then coming from that piece. I
Mhm.
also think, and you could speak to this probably a little bit more, that with the negotiation in personal relationships, it's not just what I want and what I value, but also be willing to hear what the other person is saying and really making a decision. Is this worth the negotiation?
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, like, is this worth negotiating, or is this where the negotiation stops? And I think you have to do that in business as well. It's okay, this is not worth it, so we're going to move on to something else. I mean, speak to that just a bit, because I think that sometimes you have to work, okay, how much do I really want to negotiate this?
Okay. Yeah. So there's an acronym for basically successfully negotiating, and it's DAD, and it's data or information. So if you have information, and
Yeah,
then A is arguments, right? Arguments. Be prepared to present your side, or you present your position, and
yeah,
not only present your position, but effectively listen to the other person's position, right? Because number one, if you're effectively listening, then you can effectively communicate. You can
yeah,
effectively address. But if you're listening to answer back, 9 times out of 10, it's going to fall apart, right? But if you're
yeah,
listening to understand and to gather information, when you understand and gather information, you can go back with a more powerful, if you will, powerful address to
yeah,
the information that you receive. Okay, so and then there's defense of your position. That's the last D
yeah,
in
yeah.
that, defend your position. Okay.
Yeah. As I remember, everyone, I remember that even with our children, if they wanted something and they would come and he would say, okay, tell me why. And they would sit and negotiate and he would tell them, okay, what's your argument? What's your point? Why should you get this? Why should you get that? Really taught them to negotiate just in relationships in life overall. Because when you think about life could really be considered one big negotiation at everything. And even though although sometimes that negotiation may just be going on within your mind, you know what I mean? You're negotiating within yourself. Well, should I, all of these different things. So I like that acronym, DAD. What is it again?
It's data, arguments, and the defense of position.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect. Perfect. So tell us, how does negotiation then contribute to personal and professional growth?
Okay, to
Ooh.
personal growth. I love this part because I thought about it when you asked the question initially. We start negotiating from the time that we come out of our mother's womb. Um,
Ooh, that's good.
and you think
How's
about
that?
it. I don't know what goes on before, right? I know somewhat, but I'm talking about when we hit the air, right? What's the first thing that happens that makes people know that a baby's okay? Baby starts crying, right?
Yeah.
Baby's crying, and that's negotiating. It's a bit, oh, wait a minute, I feel something, right? I don't know what to do, but I need somebody to do something about it. So I'm gonna cry, right? Until
Yeah.
somebody does something about this. So we come out of the womb negotiating, right? When we want something, we have a desire for something. We come out of the womb verbalizing our desire for a change.
And so with that, that's a good analogy when you come out of the womb and you're negotiating. And
Mhm.
it's almost because this happens even as adults, it's almost like on that other side, that parent looks and say, well, I have to do this. Yeah,
Mhm.
because there's been some things that you negotiate and you're like, okay, well, I
Mhm.
value this, so I need to do this,
I value the
So
peace. So to get this baby to stop crying, I'm gonna, what is it? Does he need water? Does he need, diaper change? What is it that they need?
yeah.
And does he need a blanket? Right? Because 9 times out of 10, they come out, they spank him. A blanket. First of all, why'd you hit me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then second, it's cold in here. Give me a blanket. And next thing, they wrap him up. So the baby knows that whenever I cry, somebody's gonna come. And we know as
Yeah.
parents that whenever that baby cries, they're not going to stop crying until we take care of what they need.
Yeah. Also a part of negotiation when you bring up the part of the infant, but as we grow and as we develop in life, I'm thinking about, in the early childhood environment with the children when they're negotiating about a toy or they're negotiating how they're playing. I've seen it to where as the negotiation happens, I see it with our grandloves as they're negotiating.
Mhm.
Some of the negotiation is angry negotiation, some is not so angry, and they're
Right.
talking about, and I could see where they've made a decision. Okay, yes, we can work together with this. We can play together. Or no,
Mhm.
we're not going to play together because this is what I want and you don't want that. So we're not going to play. And I think that negotiation is important and it happens throughout life, personal and professional. And it really helps us to grow,
Mhm.
right? Because it's given us those negotiation skills. It's really teaching us this is what I want. And many of it is even dictating, let's say,
Mhm.
even our personalities, especially when we're looking at the young ones. It's like, oh yeah, she's going to be very forceful. She knows what she wants and she's going to go after it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that's how negotiation also helps in our personal and professional growth. That, when you begin to really use the art of negotiation, when you really begin to practice dad,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Then you can really see, you really begin to dive out or delineate, let's say, what is it you want, what you don't want, what you value, what you don't value, and what are you willing to come together on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So as we think about all of this, tell me, what is some advice in particular would you give women women leaders looking to hone in on their negotiation skills? Leaders, I'm not just speaking of that CEO or the woman that's an entrepreneur or a leader in her in her work environment. I'm also speaking of in your home. You're a leader, in your home,
Mhm.
right? And so what's some of your advice for
Well,
women
the first thing
leaders?
is whenever you're going into a situation to negotiate, then I think one of um, the major downfalls or pitfalls is going into a negotiation without confidence that you're bringing enough to the table,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So this is what knowing your worth is, knowing what your value is. Because I could speak to it from a perspective of real estate. I know what my value as a realtor is. So I know that if you come to me and you say that you only want to pay me this, then I've got plenty of clients that are willing to pay me that. So why would I want to, really work with you? I do love helping people, first time home buyers and things like that. I do love that, but then I still have to be compensated for my work, and I know what my value is. And if I know what my value is, I'm not going to allow you to diminish it. So that goes forth in personal relationships as well. If I know what I bring to the table in this relationship, I know that that I can be an amazing provider. I know that I can certainly be a protector,
yeah,
all of those things. I know what I bring to the table. I know that I'm not abusive. Those are things that, that I bring to the table. And because of that, hey, I'm willing to do, what it takes to make you happy, as long as it doesn't, compromise my happiness.
yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
So what I hear you saying, speaking to the woman, especially the woman, but to all humans, know your value.
Hmm.
Know your value. And I think that's like the foundation, because I think so many times, I myself included, y'all, that I will devalue myself.
Hmm. Right. Right.
And you have to really be intentional not to devalue who you are.
Hmm.
Not, I'm going to say it again, not to devalue who you are.
Hmm.
And so I think that's just really important. So I love that recommendation. I think that's the best recommendation to women and to others, to men, to humans overall. Know your value.
Yeah.
And if you don't know your value, let's go on this self discovery of discovering what your value is and what you value, right? Because knowing your value is really knowing what you value and really seeing yourself as being worthy of that salary that you so desire, worthy of that place, worthy of that great, phenomenal relationship, worthy of being an entrepreneur. You're worthy because you now know and understand your value.
Right. Your value, your worth. And there's three questions really, um, or three statements. Number
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
this is what I bring to the table. If you can come
yeah,
with what you bring to the table, that's a powerful start statement, right?
yeah,
This is what I bring to the table. Dot 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 dot. And then after you address your worth and your value to this relationship, whether it be a business relationship or a personal relationship, after you address that piece, then it's this is what I want, or this is what I would like, right?
yeah.
Because this is what I bring, this is what I would like. The next statement is what, or what say you, right?
Yeah,
And
what say? What are you willing to
yeah,
negotiate, right?
yeah. What do you have to say about that? What's your take on my value, right? And what I bring to the table, and as opposed to what I want, right? And I bring a whole lot more to the table. And if you can make that argument, you bring a whole lot more to the table.
And be able to articulate that.
Yes.
Be able to articulate what you want. Be
Hmm.
able to articulate.
Right.
And the first person I think that you should articulate it to is to yourself,
Right. Right.
right? Be
Over and
able to
over and
know
over
this
again.
this is it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Any last closing words as we end this interview? This was so phenomenal, so phenomenal. Any closing words?
I would just say, know what you want, know your exit point when what you're not willing to give up or walk away with or without.
Yeah.
Number three, especially when you're dealing with other people, other investors, right? The purpose has to be higher than your personal gain.
I
I
love
say
that. The purpose has to be higher than your
than
personal
your
gain.
personal gain. It's
Yeah,
got to be higher than how much money you're going to make. It's got to be
yeah,
higher than than what material things you're going to get out of it.
yeah.
That sort of thing. Whereas the most important thing should be that you walk out of that negotiation shape. Out of that transaction, I should say, after the negotiation, that you walk out of that right with your dignity and with your pride.
Yeah, I love it. When you walk away from it, whether it's business or personal, you
Mhm.
walk away from it with your dignity and your pride. Yeah, everything is still intact. I
And your
absolutely love
integrity.
that. And your integrity. Yeah, so
Yeah.
important. Your dignity, your pride, and your integrity. So this has been a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on, y'all. I strong armed him and said, "You're going to do this."
You had to negotiate for that. No, just kidding. No, thank you for having
You had to negotiate.
me.
I love it. I love it. Just one more thing before we close, and we're about to end very quickly. In
Mhm,
marriage, we have a marriage. We've
mhm.
been married for 36 years. Share a little bit from your perspective, the negotiation with us in our marriage, because I know that we have a married conference coming up, right?
Yes.
A marriage not conference, a marriage retreat coming
Mhm.
up in December that will share more information. I'll share more information about it. But I know in our marriage that we've had to do a lot of negotiation, and some of the negotiation did not work. Like we both walked away and said, okay, we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Disagree, yeah.
And that's where the agreement came in. We just disagreed. So
Mhm.
can you just, for 60 seconds or less, if possible, share a
60
little bit
seconds.
about that? Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Tick, tick. I really believe that if you're always willing to look through your partner's through their lens, right, at
Yeah.
the situation or the circumstance, and if you're willing to do that, then it's called empathy. Just putting yourself in their place and in their position, and
Yeah.
with any negotiation, relationship, business, or whatever, put yourself, think, if you were in that position, if you were in that place, what would you do? And it may not be what they would absolutely do, but at least you're making an effort to understand where they're coming from. And if you're coming from a position of trying to understand where they're coming from, it makes them more likely to work with you. And in our relationship, that's kind of how it's been. I mean, we really, 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 after 36 years, have a pretty good understanding of one another, but we're still changing, we're still transforming, we're still growing.
Exactly.
In some other
Exactly.
areas, we outgrow each other, and we may
Yeah.
catch up, that sort of thing. So we have to be willing to understand that there's a difference. We have to come back to the table and
Yeah.
maybe renegotiate some things.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've did that several times, come back and renegotiate and make a decision that we're going to grow together. We're going to stay together. But it has been a negotiation, you
Mhm.
know, and like I said before, sometimes we agree to disagree until we can come to a place,
Mhm.
right? Okay, well, let's disagree on this. But I think the one thing that we both are very clear on is what we both value. And while we value some of the same things, there are some things that I individually value that you don't value as much as I do. And so we come together on those things. And I think that we have our non-negotiables, and yet we have our negotiables and we come together. And I love what you said. We're growing, which we have, and we're changing. And so we take that time to understand, because it's never, you're never, even in business and entrepreneurship, you're never in it by yourself,
Mhm.
right? It
Right.
takes two. And whenever you're in a relationship, whether it's business or other, right? it's always going to take some level of negotiation. Am I right?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you. You know I love you,
Love
and
back.
see you soon. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, guys, that was a powerful, powerful conversation. Make sure that you heart him up and love on him when you're listening to this, and share your thoughts and your comments. I want to hear what you have to say about every episode that we do. Give us your inputs. Give us your thoughts. Also tell us, what type of shows that you want us to air, or what subjects that you want to talk about. So now we're going into just a little bit of self-reflection, right? And we've had this powerful conversation, and I want you to just take a minute, get your journal if that's what you need to get, and just begin to self-reflect. What is it that you need to negotiate in your life, whether it's business or personal? You know, what are your values, and really begin to think about what are your non-negotiables, and what is it that you will negotiate. And in this brief moment of self-reflection, you're not going to come up with everything, but just begin to just think about it. And if needed, jot a couple of things down. And think about the dad. What is it that you're going to bring? What's your argument? What's your research? What's your data that you have? And what is it that you really want in life and in business, and what you're willing to negotiate? So let's just think about that just for a few minutes. Self-reflection is just so, so powerful. And listen, this is the opportunity, because we just received some awesome nuggets on the how negotiation and the art of negotiation can really transform your business, and honestly just transform your life. So now we're up to the segment called Ask Dr. Esther. And our question today is, what does success mean to you? And this is coming from Michael R. from Montana. Yay. So what does success mean to me? Woo. Okay. Um, Whenever I think about success, I just think about whole life success. So success mean to me, it's not monetary, right? Because money comes and goes. But I will say that money it gives you access to great memories. But success really is the people I have in my life. It's my relationship. It's the joy and it's the peace that I have despite all of the challenges, right? So when I'm looking at whether my life is successful, I look at where I am in my life. Am I happy? Am I joyful? Do I have peace? Success doesn't necessarily mean that everything is in place exactly how you want it. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It's really inward. It's not the outward appearance, right? It's the inward. How are you inside? I became extremely successful when I realized, and when I was able to hone in and capture that no matter what is going on around me, I may have moments of crying. I may have moments of sadness, because I'm on this journey called life, and life happens. And I heard someone say that life be lifing. So I may be on this journey, but success for me is in the middle of all of that. I could look at my life and I could say that I'm still worthy, that I still have values, that I have a peace and I have a joy. I understand me. And that for me is success. I'm happy. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I have a joy and I have a peace. I have a calmness. That is success. And so I want you to define, what does success mean to you? And what does success look like for you? Because everyone has a difference of success. And again, I want to repeat, success isn't necessarily money, because there's a lot of people out there that you could say, oh, they're so successful. They've got all this money, but they're unhappy. You know, success is, are you happy? What about your health? You know, so I'm looking at, in all of the areas of my Life by Design framework, I'm looking at all of that for success. Everything that comes together that makes up who Esther is. That is success for me. Thank you so much, Michael from Montana, Michael R. from Montana, for asking that question. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Listen, everyone, make sure you keep your questions coming. Reach out to me. The email will be posted. You could post your questions. You could post it on social media, what your question is, and we will make sure your question answered. We get your question answered. So now let's talk about celebration, because y'all know I love to celebrate, and I have a lot to celebrate, but I really want to celebrate you. Right. And so I want you to begin to send me a picture, send me something that says, this is what I want to celebrate. So here's something I'm going to celebrate right now. This is someone who says, I'm graduating from residency. So my daughter, y'all, it's my daughter. She is graduating from residency in 2 weeks. She's at the end of a very long road. So I'm celebrating Dr. Jaleesa Graham Hudgens. I'm celebrating her. So proud of you. Your dad and I are proud of you. Yes. Brothers and sisters are proud of you. Your community is proud of you. You did it. You did it. You did it. You walked that hard road and you stood and you stand. And so we celebrate you. So come on, everyone. Join me again as we celebrate Dr. Jaleesa Graham Hudgens. Now, yay! Make sure that you send your celebration. It could be about you. It could be about a family member. It's whatever you want to celebrate, because celebration should be in our DNA. It is good for the soul. It brings us joy. It releases, what's that word? It just left my mind, guys. Anyway, it releases joy and happiness and all those wonderful things. I can't remember the word. It just slipped my mind, but make sure that you celebrate. Now, our quote for the week. This is your quote for the week. Are you ready? The greatest calamity in life is not to have failed, but to have failed to try. Once again, the greatest calamity in life is not to have failed, but to have failed to try. That's the quote for the week. Don't stop trying. Fail forward. Fail forward. I'm so glad that you joined us today. I'm so appreciative of you. Continue to tune in. Subscribe on my YouTube, subscribe. Make sure you're sending in your questions, your celebration. Make sure that you're sharing it with others. Good things that's happening. You don't ever keep it to yourself. You share it with others. And listen, this is a good thing that's happening. Powerful information, powerful guests. Join me again, Dr. Esther Graham, in creating your desired life. See you next time. Love you. Bye. We're going to dance it out, y'all. We're going to dance it out in just a second.